I'm Patrick Bailey with whiteboardcoder.com. Today is February 6, 2020, and in this video, I'll be taking a JSON file and converting it to an Excel file, and an Excel file and converting it to a JSON file using the Openpyxl library. And I'll be doing this all on Ubuntu 18.04. Okay, so for those who may be new to this, Openpyxl is a Python library that helps you create Excel files and also read from Excel files. And I did a video on it recently showing how to install it on Ubuntu 18.04 and get it basically working. And so I'll put a link to that video here. But let me go over a few links and let's get going. So here is the Openpyxl document. So you can start going through this. There's also some documents on some simple usages, and I'll put these in the show notes. One thing I will probably be using here is there's a JSONlint.com that you can put JSON in to confirm that it's valid. Also in this, I've already put up my code out there on GitHub. I'm under Patman Denver, so I'll put links to these specific codes so you can actually just go there and pull it down. But with that, let me get going here. So here I am on this Ubuntu box. In fact, let me do lsb release-a to show that I am on Ubuntu 18.04. So let me make a directory and I'll call it JSON XLS. Hopefully I haven't made one of those. And there we go, we're empty. So with that, let me start writing some code. Well, let me get the JSON here. So I'll say original.json, and I've got it over here. I'm going to cut and paste it, but then I'll do some tests to make sure it's valid. So there is some very readable JSON. In this case, what I'm going to make is just a budget. So line by line will be like January, February, March, what my food, heat, and rent cost, kind of an example, just to make an Excel spreadsheet out of that. Now with this, even though Openpyxl can do formatting and all kinds of stuff like that, that's not what this video is covering. We're just covering getting JSON file in and getting it out to a JSON file, and we're not worrying about formatting. Although I do hope to do a video on that soon. So here's that. Let me go cat it out. And I could do a couple of things to confirm that we do have valid JSON. Let me go copy this, and I will go over to the JSON lint, put it in there and say validate JSON. We look good. Another thing I can do is if you have JQ installed, I can say JQ, let's see, dot original.json. Oh, let's see, JQ, what do I do? Cat, original. I could do that too. Oh, let's see. I always get used to using the cat version of it, but you can do JQ. Original dot. All right. What did I mess up here? I had it in my brain of the day. No, that's right. JQ.original.json. There we go. JQ.original.json. That's a way to do it. And that, if it comes out like this, it confirms that your JSON is good. If you don't have the JQ tool, you can do a sudo apt.get install JQ, and you should be able to get it just fine. Okay, so now let me write some code that I have the JSON. So we will go over here and I will make some Python code. I will go into the, what do I call this directory? JSON XL. And I'll create a Python program and I'll call it create XLS from JSON.py. Now, one thing I like to do when I'm writing Python, any kind of code, I like to go step by step and make sure I'm actually working just fine. So I'll go just make a very basic program here. User then environment. I'm doing this in Python 3. And I'll come down here and I like to make a main method here and just have it print out test. I just like to make sure that that much is working, right? And then I'll do a change mod. Oh, let me stay in there. I'll use this over here. I'll say change mod user plus execute and my Python program, and then we'll run it and test. Good, we're working. So now let's actually do some important stuff. Now, in my last video, I installed all the Python libraries for the Openpyxl, so you can go watch that video, but it's already installed, so I just should need to import stuff. So import Openpyxl, import JSON, so we're doing JSON stuff. Import Openpyxl. Oh, import Openpyxl. Oh, I always do that wrong. This is from Openpyxl import workbook. There we go. Okay, so now I'll come down here and I'll say, I'll delete that. Yeah. I'll say JSON data is going to equal a dictionary, because I just have an empty dictionary at first. I'll read that into a dictionary. We're just going to make my life. Okay, and so now I'll say with open original.json. So I'll open that file as JSON file, and I will convert it. I'll say JSON data equals JSON.load JSON file. So that'll take that and bring it in. Now my dictionary will be filled up with the the JSON object. So now I'll say workbook equals workbook. And so here's where I'm going to start to create my Excel spreadsheet. And what I'll do, well, before I go any further, let's make sure we're okay. So I'll do print JSON data and see what I have. So hopefully that should just all run. And there we go. We got our dictionary now. Cool. So now we got a workbook, and that's the Excel spreadsheet that we're going to create. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab the active worksheet. So I'll say worksheet _01 equals wb.active. And then we'll set the title of the worksheet. I'll say worksheet _01 equals first worksheet or first sheet. And then what we can do now is just to make sure we actually this worked, we can say save it, save it in Excel file, and we'll say wb.save, and we'll call this test json.xlsx. And so right now this should, at this point, it'll read that JSON in. It'll make a new, it'll set up all the stuff we need to make a worksheet. It'll call the worksheet the first sheet. It'll make a file called test.json. That should be empty. So I'll save that off. I'll run this. And there we have test.json xlsx. So now over here, I will actually copy it over here locally. I have it running on another machine here. Let's see, we'll call that JSON XLS and XLSX here. Boom. Then I'll open it. And what I should see, right over here, is an empty worksheet. Oh, it didn't even rename my sheet. Maybe it doesn't rename your sheet. Oh, did I do something wrong? Oh, I did. There we go. Perfect. I did something wrong. So this should be .title. Let's try that again. There we go. So empty sheet, but it is called first sheet. So that worked. Now let's actually use that JSON data to populate it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hard code the first column. So I will say set first row, and I will say ws_01.cell row 1, column 1. And in the case of Excel spreadsheets, we count from 1, not from 0. And I'll just say, I'll put month in there. And I'll just copy paste. And we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. And I will say food, heating, and rent. And so now that should populate that, but now I want to get that JSON data in there. So I'll say row equals 1, and I'll say for month in JSON data dot keys. Row plus equals 1, and then we'll say worksheet underscore 01 dot cell row. Now we're going to set the rows, the next row, the following row. We're skipping that first row. We're going on to the second row, I should say. And we put the actual month in there. Then we say, because the month should be pulling in from our JSON data, should be pulling in January, February, etc. And then we'll say cell. Now, of course, we're just reading the data as is. So we're not. In this case, we're being very simple. So if the data is unsorted, it will come out unsorted. But this is just an example just to get you going. So we're not getting very fancy here at all. So I'll say row 2. And now what I want to do is I can take that JSON data, and I know the month, so we'll grab the month out of it. We'll pass it that key. But then I also need to grab, in this case, the food key and get that variable back out. And then what I'm going to do is I want to set this as a float. Cast it to a float. So now it'll come out as a float, and so it'll put it in as a number rather than a string. So I'll paste it a few more times, and we'll say 3, 4, and then we'll change food to eating and rent. And that should do us. So now that should pull that data in. So we'll save that, run it, pull it in over here, open it up, and hopefully we are done. Perfect. Let me increase the size of this. Zoom. So we can see we have first sheet, it got created. We have month, food, heating, rent, January, February, March, which happen to be read in the correct order, but JSON is unordered, so you might have to order stuff as you come in, depending on what you're doing. And there we go. Now we have all the numbers correctly, and these are numbers. If we look at this, they're treated as general, so they're not treated as text. So I can come down here later on and say that plus that, and it's going to work just fine. But, you know, these aren't formatted as $ signs. We haven't done anything special formatting. We're just reading the data in. And so we'll leave it like that. And so we've taken a JSON file, and we've made an Excel file. So now let's do the reverse. Let's take this file and convert it back into a JSON file. Okay, let's create a new file. We'll call it create JSON from XLS x.py. And again, I always like to make sure the basic code is working. So I'll say user, then environment, Python 3. And then we'll come down here and do our main again with just a simple print to make sure, stop it, make sure it is working. I'll keep that open. And I'll say change mod, user plus execute, create JSON. Oh, I forgot the E. Anyway, it'll still work. So you see tests, it's working. Now, do our imports. Import Openpyxl, import JSON, import from Openpyxl, import load workbook. There we go. Come down here, wipe that out. So now we need to read this in. So say workbook equals load workbook, and file name equals, over here we have the test.json XLS, so we'll copy that out. That's the file we want to read. And we will say that worksheet equals WB. Now, we can have multiple worksheets. Now, in this case, there's a lot of different ways to do this, but we know what our worksheet is named, so we'll just be very simple about this. And we'll say, grab the worksheet with the title first sheet. There's other ways to iterate through everything, but this will just be really simple and get it working. And we'll say budget. So we've got that working. Okay, and this is just setting up some dictionaries to use later on. So we'll say budget dictionary equals, make it a dictionary, column headers equals another dictionary, and returns a tuple. tuple that are cell type. Oh, cell type. So we come down here, we can say first row equals WS1. So we're grabbing that worksheet, we're grabbing the first row, and what it does is it's going to return the first row as a set of tuples. So it's just a, well, not a set of tuples, as tuples, but all the tuples are of a cell type. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip the first column, because we don't want that data, because that data is the month, and we already know that, so we don't need that. So we're going to skip that, and I'll say for cell in first row, boom, boom, boom. And what I'll do is to skip that, I do that. And if you're unfamiliar with Python, what this is grab that array, but since we start at 0, don't start at 0, start at 1, and then rather than doing something like, you know, if I did that says get the first one and the second one. Well, skip the 0th one, get number 1, number 2. Or does it actually skip 2? No, it skips 2. But anyway, if I do it like this, it says get everything. Start at the 1th column and get everything. Well, in that nomenclature, we're actually getting the second column in the Excel spreadsheet. So what I can do here as a test, I can say print cell.internal value. And what I should get out is I should skip the first column from the first row, and I should get everything else. So if I open up this Excel spreadsheet over here, what I should get is I should get food, heating, and rent. So now if I run that, in fact, let me leave this up and make it bigger. Okay. So now if I run this over here, we get food, heating, and rent. Perfect. So what I actually want to do is I want to save those for later use. So I will say column headers, and I'll say cell.column, because the cell itself knows what column it is, so basically we're storing that number. So we'll say, in this case, 2, 3, 4. And I'll say 2, 3, 4 equals cell.internal value, because I want to store those values out later so that I can bring them back when I actually want to make my JSON. Now I want to go from the second row on and pull all that data in. So I'll say for row in ws.iter rows, min row equals 2. So in this case, we're going to iterate all over the rows, but we're going to skip the first row. So in this case, I can say for, well, let me see. I want to put some more data here, but I will go down here and I'll say for cell in row, right? For cell in row 1. Oh, there we go. For cell in row 1. And so here I'm skipping that first column again because I don't want January, February, March. I'm going to grab that a different way. But if I said for cell, well, I'm going to do that in a second. But if I just did, as an example, if I did that, and I said print cell dot internal value, and what we should get is every single value out, starting the second column. And there we go. January, we can see January 240, 89, 117.9. So that's all coming out just fine. But what I really want to do is I want to capture all this stuff. For first, I want to capture the month. So store the month out. And so since we're reading the first row, we can say month cell equals row 0. So we'll read that first. We know that's a month. And so we'll say, and then temp cell dictionary, which is what we want to put in that cell. We'll just say, make that empty. So every time you go through a row, we make an empty dictionary. And then we skip, now here, we're going to skip the month. So I'll come down here and I'll say 1 dot, and that'll skip the first column. And so now if I run this again as is, we no longer will see January, February, and March. Boom. Now I'm going to come down here and say, okay, I'm going to start making my JSON on my dictionary object. So I'll say column name equals column headers cell.column. So I'm going to use this because as I start through this, I'm in cell 2. In cell 2, I put that right here. So that value is right here, the number 2. The number 2 pulls out of the headers, which we just made up here. And so that'll get food and heating and rent. So it knows what column name it's in. Then we will use that to assign it. So we will say temp cell dictionary, and we will say the column name, and we will say equals cell dot internal value. So now we should have, if I were to print this out, temp cell, well, let's see. Now we'll just do that like that. So now we're doing all that. And so now as we add those together, at the end of it all, we should have everything for that row done. And then we can say set month key to be contents of row. And I can say budget dict month cell dot internal value. So we'll get that month cell that we happen to know is, this is a cell object. So we'll get that internal value, which will be January. In this case, on the first go around. And we'll say equals temp cell dict, which should be the dictionary we've been building from that first row of data. And then when we go to the second row, we'll build the second row, third row, and so on. And we'll keep adding that to the budget dict. And so it should, because all those months are unique keys, it should just keep adding just fine. So now they've got all that. Now we come out of that for loop and we say convert the dictionary to a JSON. And I'll say data JSON equals JSON dumps and the budget. And we'll pass it the dictionary we just made. And then we want to write it out. So write the JSON to a file. So I'll say with open. And so we'll have a new file. We'll call it new JSON. So we're not overwriting our original JSON we made before. And we'll write to it as f as a file. I'll say f dot write data JSON. And that should write our JSON file out if I didn't make any mistakes. So let me run that. It made something. And so I should see my new.json. And so if I cat my new.json, we'll see it made what looks like a JSON, but it doesn't make it pretty. So what I can do is I can just to confirm that it is JSON, I can say jq.new.json, and boom, it worked. So we have that, and now we have our JSON file. Now, as you edit these, how do you compare them? Because in this case, we believe that we should be making the same JSON file that we made before. But if I come here and do a diff, if I do that, let me do a cat original.json. It's somewhat nicely formatted. Cat new.json. They look like different files. So if I do a diff new.json and original.json, it should barf and say, hey, there's a big difference between these files. But if you want to compare JSON files, you can use the JQ tool to do that. So I'll do it the slow way, then I'll do it in the one command way. So what I can do is I can say JQ-S, which will sort everything because these are not sorted. They happen to match right now, but they may not necessarily when it comes to JSON. So I'll say that new.json, right, which makes me this beautiful file, and I will make it use that and pass that into a new file, new sorted pretty.json, right? And I'll do the same thing with the other file, original.json, original sorted pretty.json. So now if I look at that new sorted or the original sorted, they should look pretty similar. And so I actually can do a diff on the new sorted and the original sorted. And because they've been ordered correctly, there you go. I returned nothing, so that proves that they're the exact same. But you can do this in a simpler fashion. You don't have to go through actually making a file. I can just say diff, And then what I can do is do it all in one command. I can say jq-s.new.json and then jq-s here, original JSON, and that'll give me the same results, but in one nice command line. Oh, original.json. There we go. So that works. There's another command you can do. So there you go. There's a way to easily take JSON into Excel file, an Excel file back to JSON, and an easy way to make sure that you're programmatically making the same thing. There you go. I hope to do some more videos on these, on this Openpyxl tool, because I want to do, next up I want to do some formatting, because the idea, what I'd like to do is to be able to take a JSON file, make an Excel file, format it in a nice way for a user interface so that I can interact with it more easily, and then take that and convert it back down to a JSON file where I would lose the formatting. I don't want that necessarily, but that I could get that file exactly. So as an example, I could take this, take a JSON file, bring it into, here's an Excel file, change this heating to 99.2, write it out back to a JSON file, and the updated JSON file would just have that heating change. So anyway, there you go. Hope that helped someone out there. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a like. To subscribe, just click the subscribe button. Also, you can follow me on Twitter under the handle @whiteboardcoder.com. View any code I may have thrown up as a gist at GitHub under the username PatmanDenver, or check out my blog site at whiteboardcoder.com.